Let's start with the first of the two semifinals at Copa America. Of course, we got Uruguay, Colombia coming up on Wednesday, but the focus for now, Canada and Argentina Tuesday in New Jersey, a rematch of the tournament opener, which of course was won by Argentina 2-0 on second half goals from Julian Alvarez and Lautaro Martinez. 19 days later, they're going to meet again in the semifinal. Let's hear from Argentina manager Lionel Scaloni.
Bueno, Leo está bien, terminó bien, así que mañana será parte del partido, así que estamos tranquilos. Es que el 99% de las veces está para jugar. Nunca me ha pasado que no esté para jugar. No, cada vez que ha salido a la cancha estaba para jugar. Está para jugar, sí, no tengas duda.
¿%lo ves?
Está para jugar, sin duda. Es una decisión, es muy fácil para mí, porque es una decisión muy franca, es sentarme con él, ¿cómo estás? ¿Estoy bien? ¿Listo? Jugás. ¿No estoy bien? Bueno, jugás los últimos 30. Es así de fácil.
¿Puede jugar? Sí.
Okay,
he's playing.
It's as easy as that,
It's as
right?
easy
When it
as
comes to
that.
Lionel Messi, maybe that's all there is. What do you make of what the manager says there?
Well, it really is an existential question that we must ask ourselves. Do we believe Lionel Scaloni? And that's it. It comes down to that. If you believe what Lionel Scaloni is telling you in the press conference, that Lionel Messi is indeed fit and ready to play, está para jugar. ¿Está para jugar? Sí, está para jugar. Okay, if he's fit and ready to play, then I think that changes the conversation. However, I feel like there's a whole lot of wiggle room there in the está para jugar. I don't know that this is the best version of Lionel Messi. In fact, I think with certainty that it's not the best level that he could be at this point. I think obviously he has felt something. Obviously something is bothering him. And if you go back to the performance against Ecuador, the guy was not moving. And let me make this distinction. Not moving well, just not moving, period. And he has to be able to play at a much higher level than what we saw against Ecuador in order for him to be effective. So if you believe Lionel Scaloni, and if Lionel Scaloni is telling the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help him God, then we must take him at his word and say, okay, let's see it out on the field if indeed Lionel Messi is ready to have an impact, the sort of impact that Argentina need him to have.
What's your level of confidence in Messi?
I wasn't confident heading into the Ecuador game. You know, there's been no secret. You've asked me, I said,
Está para jugar.
Está para jugar. But then he says, when he's here, he's played. It's never happened. That's a lie, Scaloni. You had him against Bolivia in La Paz, and you chose to rest him because he clearly was nursing something. So after that Bolivia game, he comes back. This was last season. It comes back in the World Cup qualifying to Inter Miami, and then you see what happened to Messi. Takes a few days off. I'm good to go. What happened? Plays in Miami. Comes out minute 30th, I believe. He's clearly injured. We saw this again this season with Inter Miami when they played against Monterrey in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Wasn't himself, didn't move, as Ali was saying, against Monterrey in the second leg of that tournament. They're out. I've seen this many times with him, and it's natural. He's 37 years old. The problem here is, while I may believe Scaloni will play him, because that I believe, I don't believe the decision is his. It's Messi's. And how can it not be? And we see this in the Euros when we talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. How nobody can tell Cristiano Ronaldo what to do, how he's holding hostage the Portuguese national team. Messi's not quite holding his team hostage because he still produced and he's still very important to this team, but certainly in a moment like this, you see what he doesn't do when he's not fit for the Argentine national team.
They criticize Roberto Martinez for not making the decision. Why not criticize Scaloni then for not making the decision?
I think you should. I think
really?
Absolutely. Could you imagine if they lose to Canada? Messi's out there and he's not moving like he didn't move versus Ecuador. And Canada, who's been playing well, have a lot of confidence, are playing with house money, get a result and go to the final, and Argentina's out. What are they going to say?
By the way, these are decisions that can be made. You just mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo. Fernando Santos in the World Cup made the decision and said, no, Cristiano, you got to come and sit here next to me. And in the end, that didn't quite work out for Fernando Santos, Portugal, or Cristiano Ronaldo, and then there's criticism on everybody. Roberto Martinez decided against making that decision. He said, no, we're going to write Cristiano Ronaldo. That didn't work out either. And so, look, we think that the managers have this power. And Fernando Santos obviously thought that he did. I don't know whether Lionel Scaloni has that power or whether he wants to have that power and wants to be the guy that sits down Lionel Messi. I don't know that he wants to be in that role. And so I think it's all too convenient for his own narrative that Lionel Messi tells him, ¿está para jugar? Sí. Okay, then you play.
Right.
And that's a way of him shifting the responsibility onto Lionel Messi and say, look, he told me he's ready to play. I'm going to play. How can I sit him down when he told me he was ready to play?
Is there such a thing, Casey, as too much faith in Messi for Argentina?
I mean, there is and there isn't. I mean, it's obviously what he's done over the last several tournaments. It was always the case of couldn't quite get there. Well, now he's got him there, and he's got him there and won titles. So now it's, unfortunately, it's that situation where you almost need a player to say, I'm done. Not the other way around. Because you don't want to be you don't want to be the manager that tells Lionel Messi that he's done, and that doesn't. It's not an enviable place to be, and so I get it. I get it that you kind of say, "Come on, help us out here. Can you do that role that we've let you have? The role of 5 to 10 instances a half, where you can come out of the walking mode and make a difference." And the problem is when he took the knock, he hasn't been able to do that. The question mark now is there been enough time through walking through the quarterfinal match, not pushing himself to where he was going to hurt himself worse, and now have a little bit more time where he's recovered enough where he can have those 5 to 10 moments.
You know what the worst part for Scaloni is here is it'd be one thing if it was just Messi that was in doubt. But there's so many individual performances from Argentina that have been lackluster in the midfield. You can go through that whole midfield line. Rodrigo de Paul, whether it's Paredes, whether it's McAllister, or whatever the case may be of those players, Enzo Fernandez, who have had subpar tournaments for their standard, that he's almost thinking, I can't afford not to have the most special player on the planet when fit. If he tells me he's fit, I have to roll the dice. But you know what it's like as players. We've all been injured. You have to take that away from the player. You have to save the player from himself.
Ale, even against Canada, I mean, wouldn't this be a potentially ideal spot to rest him? Can't this Argentina beat Canada without Messi?
And the question that you're asking has a very, very simple answer. Yes, Argentina should beat Canada even without Lionel Messi. They should be good enough to beat Canada without Lionel Messi. And if we just look at the evidence from this tournament, not other games, not other matches from the past, from this tournament. In this tournament, against Peru, you played a second team of Argentina, and that team was running circles around Peru. Now, people are going to tell me, well, Canada is better than Peru. All right, they may be better. Are they significantly better? I'm not quite so sure. The truth of the matter is that Argentina, at their best, without Lionel Messi, anywhere near the field, is better than Canada. It's better than Canada. The talent level for that Argentina team without Lionel Messi is still higher than that of Canada's. But to the point that Hercules was making, people are going to have to raise their level in Argentina. They're going to have to raise their level because against Ecuador, it was a poor performance. And this is what I fear for Canada. They've been hearing, Argentina has, how poor they were individually, as a group. You don't think there's going to be a reaction from the World Cup champion, from the defending Copa America champion, essentially the same group of players? Yes, there will be a reaction. And I feel, as Argentina will show up to this game, with or without Lionel Messi, him playing at his best or not even close to his best, and Argentina will dominate Canada because it is what is demanded from the history of Argentina as a team. It's not just about this tournament. It's the history of Argentina demands that they beat Canada in a semifinal of a Copa America.
If Canada are to compete, are to keep it close, what's the tactic? What's the approach for Jesse Marsch and company?
I don't think they can be as aggressive as Jesse likes his teams to play. I think they have to be a little bit more conservative. They have to pick and choose, excuse me, the opportunities when they can press and when they can drop off and make things frustrating.
What do you guys think?
While I understand what Alejandro is saying, if this Argentina plays to the level that they played against Ecuador, which means they lowered their level, Ecuador could have and should have won that game, realistically, if you think about it. and Canada played to their ceiling with the athleticism that Canada has in transition, with the amount of players that are right now, an informed Jacob Shuffleborg, Jonathan David, who at any moment can turn on, Estacio in there, whoever's in there, whether it's Cone or Jonathan Osorio, they have players to hurt you in that final third. But to Casey's point, you need to be very calculated. You can't go in and say full throttle all the time, because even when you showed well against Argentina in the opening day of Copa America and you were fresh, you still lost 2-0, and it could have been uglier. It could have been a lot more than 2-0. So you need to be calculated. But certainly this Argentina team, with what they've shown you in the last game, on grass laid over turf in New York, which will be heavy, if Canada can pick their moments, be smart, and defend well, because they've done relatively well defensively in this tournament, you've got a puncher's chance here.
Ale?
So who are you picking?
Argentina.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that, because I mean, you had me believing for a second.
No. He asked me what it would take for them to win.
I mean, you had me believing. I felt it. I almost.
Canada, right?
I was maple syrup everywhere. Look, honestly, if I look at Argentina and evaluate Argentina, you have to imagine that Argentina, having played against Canada, rather than being an advantage for Canada, it's actually an advantage for Argentina, because they know that that Canada team that you were talking about posed some challenges. They may have been overlooking Canada in that initial game. I don't think they're overlooking Canada now, and certainly not overlooking Canada given their own performance against Ecuador. So it's factors that they're adding together and stacking up together against Canada. The fact that now Argentina knows you, they know you. There are no surprises here. Now, the homework that they had done coming up to the tournament has now been strengthened by the fact that they played against you, and so they now know what your strengths are. There's more flexibility to Argentina as a team. Yeah. Instead, if you think about how does Canada go about winning this game, there aren't many ways that they go about winning this game. Argentina can win it in different ways. Canada, I think the way that they approach it, and with Jesse Mars and the sort of momentum that they have, is this nothing to lose sort of mentality. We're going to go press. We're going to make the field very short. And in making the field very short, we're going to try to get numbers around the ball. We're going to try to force turnovers. So this is when the key for Argentina is being able to play out of that pressure. And if they play out of that pressure, there are spaces in behind. So runs out of the midfield, late runs out of the midfield, the timing of those runs, the timing of those passes will be key for Argentina. I think Argentina is going to play at a high level. And if they play at a high level, I don't care what Canada does. I think I still see Argentina advancing.
I think one thing that Canada does not do is have Maxime Crepeau 40 yards outside of his goal. I think that's the one thing in this match we're not going to see.
Well, actually, it may help if they leave all that space in behind.
If they do pull the upset, Casey,
yes.
Like, how does that strengthen Canada's case for best in CONCACAF? Because you look at it, they would have had by far the best Copa America run, best record in World Cup qualifiers. We've talked about it before. Yep. You always say best 9. Hard to argue against Alphonso Davies as the best striker. Maybe you have to throw Jesse Marsh. Sorry, best player in CONCACAF.
Yeah.
Maybe you got to throw Jesse Marsh in there as one of the best managers in CONCACAF. I mean, if they beat Argentina,
it's a results
how are
game.
They not the top dogs?
That's really what it comes down to. It comes down to results. And if you then are able to consistently get better results than the U.S. or Mexico, then you will be in that conversation. I mean, what we've seen, though, is in Nations League or Gold Cups, there hasn't been a consistency with Canada. They strung together a great qualifying campaign. Excellent. Then they struggled in the World Cup. Then Nations League or whatever, they couldn't string results together. New manager, Jesse comes in late, gets a late opportunity to come into this tournament after qualifying. Now you string together some results. If you get yourself into a final, which...
By beating the World Cup champion.
By beating the World Cup champion.
9 games into Jesse Marsh's tenure.
That's
that's the other thing is the ceiling you could start to think about.
It's the biggest result in Canadian history.
What Sebi's saying isn't too far off. I mean, what do you value more, a Copa America or a Nations League?
Yeah, no, I'm right. But I'm just saying.
Or a Gold Cup where these teams go out with their B teams. Honestly, if you look at it, I mean, Mexico may have the best history. The U.S. men's national team may have the best pool. But the biggest moments now, and if you could look at the World Cup, look at that group they were in. You know, the
What's the
golden
furthest
generation of Belgium and the 2 semifinalists in the 2022 World Cup. This team in this tournament, this was supposed to be the CONCACAF tournament where Mexico was supposed to prove themselves. The U.S. men's national team was supposed to prove themselves. And here we are in a more complicated group. It's Canada.
Talking about Canada.
And they're in a semifinal against Messi and the World Cup champions.
Yeah.
You haven't asked our resident Venezuelan about.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Sorry, Ollie.
About what?
What
Well,
happened?
Canada beats Venezuela to get here. You know, how big from somebody who's played in this tournament over and over. Look, I played in it once or twice.
Yeah.
You know, you played in it a bunch with a country that is, you know, trying to prove themselves that they are now in that next tier in this. Is it that big for Canada? How you laughing? A little loaded. Sorry, my friend. On your birthday, I'm
my
sorry.
Canadian friends out there. I think it would be a game changer for Canada, quite frankly. I think it puts you in a different category. It puts you in a different profile as well. And when people then talk about Canadian soccer, it's one thing in making it to the World Cup and the group that you were talking about and how impressive they were in the run, making it into the World Cup. I think this only strengthens your profile. And it's hard to argue against the results. And if indeed it comes at the expense of Argentina with Lionel Messi, it's Argentina with Lionel Messi and the history of Argentina, this would be monumental for Canadian soccer. Conversely, I cannot think of a bigger embarrassment for Argentina in losing a Copa America semifinal to Canada. At this level, we're talking about how big this would be for Canada. That's the perspective that we're looking at it. At this particular result, let's look at it from the perspective of Argentina and what that would mean for Argentina.
When you already beat them twice, or beat them 2-0.
Yes.
Right. And then,
yes.
And you're 18 months removed from being World Cup champion.
And you're the defending Copa America champion. And you have the best player of all time on the field. And look, it's great for Canada.
Pressure's on Argentina. Pressure's on Argentina.
It's great for Canada.
Absolutely.
But history is pushing Argentina forward. And if they're to come up short, the embarrassment would be nonstop.
All right, so it's Argentina against Canada in the first of the 2 semifinals at Copa America. That one will be played in New Jersey on Tuesday night. Reminder, ESPN FC on ESPN Plus 7 days a week with Dan, Kay, and the rest of the crew.